This $400 brick stove eats an entire house for 24 hours on a single log. No electricity, no gas, no thermostat. Russians have used this for 400 years, so why aren't we? 30 years inside boiler rooms, HVAC closets, and off-grid cabins taught me something the industry won't admit. I have torn apart $15,000 furnaces and watched them die in a blackout after only 20 minutes. Every winter, families stare at the same heating bill, wondering how the number kept climbing so high. Forget high-efficiency furnaces. Forget heat pumps that quit at -20. There's a low-tech solution hiding in plain sight. It existed before the United States existed, and the real secret is hidden inside the bricks themselves. Picture January. The wind is howling. Your thermostat reads 64 and your gas bill just crossed $400. Electricity rates doubled in 5 years. Propane tripled.
The grate flickers and your shiny modern furnace goes silent. Here's the dirty secret. That furnace isn't really a heater, it's just a fan with a flame attached. Kill the electricity and you're sitting in the dark, in a cold box with no backup at all. Your family is one ice storm away from freezing inside a house that cost $300,000. Firewood, on the other hand, is still cheap. In most regions, a full cord costs under $200. In the countryside, you cut it yourself for the price of a chainsaw blade. Wood ignores pipelines and sanctions. Wood does not need the grid. So why does every modern house treat firewood like a hobby, not heating? Why pay utility companies thousands a year for something the forest literally gives away for free outside your door? The off-grid dream feels impossible, but only because we have forgotten how it was actually done for centuries. Russian villagers solved this 400 years ago. The machine they built is still standing, still burning today, still warming great-grandchildren in homes their great-grandfathers laid brick by brick. It is called the russkaya pech, the Russian masonry stove. In English we call it a heat-retaining stove, but those words miss what it truly is. This is not a fireplace, this is not a wood stove, this is a thermal battery built from clay and brick. For centuries it sat in the center of every peasant home from Smolensk all the way to Siberia. It cooked the family's bread, it dried their winter boots, it baked their pies, it heated their water. In winters hitting -40 Celsius, temperatures that crack cast iron on modern American stoves, it kept burning. It kept entire families warm with one armload of wood a day. No electricity, no fan, no moving parts. The Western HVAC industry pretends this device doesn't exist at all. You won't see it in Home Depot, anywhere. You won't find it in your building code. There is a very specific reason for that, coming up. But first, ask yourself one simple question. A question modern HVAC engineers cannot seem to answer honestly. If a peasant in 1600 heated a log house through a Siberian winter on one fire, why does a modern American engineer need $15,000 of equipment and a monthly gas bill?
To do the exact same thing in Ohio? Something is wrong with this picture. Something has been buried. But how can one log last a full day? How can a piece of birch heat everything? A stick no bigger than your forearm, warming 100 square meters from sunrise to sunrise. How? The answer is physics. Beautiful, brutal, ancient physics. The Russian masonry stove weighs around 2 tons, easily. Sometimes even 3 full tons. It is not some metal box you simply light a fire inside. It is a small mountain of dense clay brick built straight into the heart of the house. And every single one of those heavy bricks is a sponge. Not for water, for raw heat. Brick has what serious engineers call thermal mass. It absorbs energy slowly, holds it, releases it slowly. Light a fire inside a thin steel wood stove. The steel heats up in just 10 minutes and cools right back down within 20.
But light a fire inside 2 tons of solid brick, and that brick takes hours to absorb the heat, then a full day to give it back. But thermal mass alone is not the real trick here. The genius is hidden deep inside the stove. The flue does not go straight up at all. It zigzags, it loops, it folds back on itself, a labyrinth of narrow channels carved through the masonry. Hot gases travel 5 meters of twisting passages. Before those gases ever reach the chimney top, they smash violently into brick on every single turn. Every BTU, every joule, every spark of heat is scrubbed from the smoke and pressed into walls. By the time exhaust reaches the chimney top, it's barely warm enough to fog a glass window. The fire is gone. The heat is locked deep in the bricks, radiating quietly for a full day. Here is the part that breaks engineers. A properly built Russian stove burns at over 900 degrees inside. That is hotter than most industrial furnaces.
At that temperature, the wood does not just burn, it gasifies. The smoke itself catches fire. Tar, creosote, particulates, every bit of it combusts inside the chamber. What comes out of the chimney is nearly invisible, nearly odorless, almost pure carbon dioxide and water vapor. A 2-ton brick stove burns cleaner than the catalytic converter sitting under your car right now. And it does all of this without one single moving part. No fan, no pump, no circuit board, no sensor, no thermostat. Nothing to break, nothing to service, nothing that needs electricity to keep running. The whole machine is brick, clay, and air. Modern furnaces waste 70% of your fuel, proof below. Walk into any American basement built after 1990. Forced air. A burner heats a metal heat exchanger. A blower pushes air across it through sheet metal ducts. 30% of the heat escapes up the flue. Another chunk leaks through duct walls into the attic and crawl space. The blower itself eats hundreds of watts. Every time the burner cycles on and off, it shocks the metal, dries the air, and blasts your sinuses. Forced air heat is not heat. It is hot wind that fades the second the burner stops cycling. The Russian stove does the opposite. It does not blow air. It radiates heat, like the sun itself. Bricks reach 60 to 70 degrees Celsius, hot enough to warm a room without scorching, gentle enough to touch. Radiant heat travels in perfectly straight lines through air, warming people, floors, walls, and furniture, not the air. Open a window in a Russian stove home. You still feel warm, because radiation hits your bare skin directly. Try that with a forced air furnace, and you are freezing in 30 seconds. Radiant heat does not dry air. It does not stir dust, whistle through vents, or wake you at 3 a.m. when blowers kick on. It is the most comfortable heat humans ever engineered, and we built it before the steam engine existed. So why isn't every single home using one? Why is the entire industry silent? The answer is uncomfortable. Bricks cannot be patented. Clay cannot be patented. A labyrinth designed by peasants in 1600 cannot either. No proprietary control board. No annual filter subscription, no service contract, no recurring revenue, nothing to sell twice. A masonry stove is built once by a local mason with local materials and lasts 100 years. Nothing in that sentence an HVAC corporation can sell twice. That, more than anything, is why you never heard. And the efficiency numbers? They will absolutely shock you when you finally see the brutal truth on screen. Independent labs in Finland, Germany, Austria, and Canada measure masonry heater thermal efficiency between 85 and 93%. Let me say that again. 90% thermal efficiency from a brick stove that burns ordinary firewood. A modern condensing gas furnace claims 95%, but loses huge slices to duct leakage, blower draw, and cycling. In real-world delivered heat, the Russian stove matches or beats it, without electricity, without gas, without a utility bill. Now do the math on a single log. A dense piece of birch or oak weighs about 8 kilograms. 8 kilograms, 18 pounds, like a small newspaper bundle, contains roughly 40 kilowatt-hours of chemical energy. At 90% efficiency, That becomes 36 kWh of usable heat slowly released from the brick mass. 36 kWh over 24 hours keeps 100 square meters at 21 degrees Celsius through a freezing night. 36 kWh of electric resistance heat costs between $10 and $15 on most utility bills today. One log, worth $12 of pure heat. Free if you swing the axe and cut your own. Multiply that by a winter. 1 log a day, 150 days, equals 1.5 cords. $250 of firewood maximum versus $3,000 for natural gas or $4,000 for propane, or $5,000 for electric resistance heat. The Russian stove is not a little cheaper, 10 times cheaper.
And it lasts 80 to 100 years with zero maintenance, beyond sweeping the chimney once a year. Now watch one being built from scratch. It starts with a foundation. 2 tons of masonry needs solid ground. The builder pours a reinforced concrete slab in the center of the house or uses an existing footing. Then the firebox goes in, a chamber of high-temperature fire brick that survives repeated 900-degree fires for decades inside. This inner core is the heart of the machine, built loose with thin clay mortar so brick can expand. Above the firebox, the mason hand-shapes the labyrinth, channel by channel, brick by brick, all by memory. Each turn is calculated to slow the gas, scrub the heat, and balance the draft inside the stove. A skilled stove maker works like a violin maker carving a top plate, by feel adjusting every course. There are no factory parts, no kit, just brick, clay, sand and water shaped by patient hands. Around the labyrinth, the outer skin is laid in standard red brick, the surface you see and touch. On top, the mason builds the leżanka, a sleeping bench Westerners never believed could possibly even exist. The entire top of the stove is a warm flat platform, big enough for 2 adults to sleep on. Russian families spent winter nights wrapped in wool, breathing warm air rising off the heated brick bench. Grandparents slept there, children slept there, the sick recovered there. A communal warmth no furnace can match. It is the most luxurious heated bed humanity ever built, and it costs absolutely nothing to run. Total bill of materials for a stove that heats a small home, under $400 in most countries. Brick, clay, sand, steel firebox door, damper, length of chimney pipe, that is the entire shopping list. 2 people, 1 weekend, basic masonry skills lay the whole thing. No license, no permit, no special tools. Then comes the moment every builder remembers, the first fire. You light kindling at the back of the firebox, the flame climbs, the draft pulls. Within 30 minutes the chamber roars and the stove face begins to glow. Soft, deep, radiant warmth no electric heater can imitate. 2 tons of brick converting wood into comfort, and you realize you will never pay a heating bill again. The 10-year savings number is brutal. Take a typical family in a cold climate house spending $3,000 a year on heating fuel. That number is conservative. Many people now spend $5,000 or $6,000. Replace it with a Russian stove. Your fuel cost drops to $250 in firewood. Savings, $2,750 a year. Year 1 alone, the stove pays for itself 7 times over. Pays for itself in 2 months of winter. Over 10 years, $27,000 saved. Over 20 years, $55,000 saved. Stoves last a century. $250,000 in avoided heating costs. In today's money, completely ignoring inflation. That is not a heater. That is a financial instrument cleverly disguised as a humble pile of bricks. Then there's the value you cannot put on a spreadsheet. The blackout in February when your neighbors freeze. Grid goes down 3 days. Neighbors huddle in cars. Your living room stays 70 warm degrees inside. Ice storm snaps the gas line on your street while your fire crackles peacefully behind cast iron. The independence, the quiet, the smell of birch and bread instead of forced air and recycled dust. European appraisers now note masonry heaters as positive features, raising home resale value by tens of thousands. In a world of rising energy prices and unstable grids, a house that heats itself is an asset. So why isn't every single house using one? The answer is not technical, it is structural. Utility companies cannot bill you for a fire you started yourself. There is no meter on chimney. There is no monthly subscription on a brick. The economic model depends on needing them forever. A masonry stove cuts that cord permanently, and the industry cannot profit from a customer who left. Building codes in most Western countries were written hand in hand with manufacturers of branded factory heating systems. Codes specify approved appliances, certified installers, listed chimneys, tested clearances, all geared toward factory-built equipment only. A hand-laid masonry heater, built by a craftsman from raw materials, falls into a regulatory gray zone. Not because it is unsafe, but because no corporation paid to have it officially tested and listed. The people who could build them, masons, stove makers, the trade, have nearly vanished in the West. In Finland and Russia, the knowledge survived. In America, it was buried under a century of corporate marketing. We were told progress meant complexity, modern equals better, and a fire inside a brick was primitive. We believed it, and we paid the price every single winter for 100 long years. But the knowledge is coming back. Builders train again. Books and plans circulate among new craftsmen. Off-grid families, permaculture farms, and self-sufficient households quietly install masonry stoves across Europe and North America today. The next evolution, the rocket mass heater, pushes the same physics further with even less wood. We tear it down in the next video. But one last detail makes this Russian stove truly unbeatable. The Russian stove is not just a heater. It is a kitchen, an oven, a slow cooker. The same firebox warming your house also bakes fresh bread and slow roasts stew for 8 full hours. The flat top keeps your tea warm all day. The sleeping bench cures aching.
Tired, sore backs. The chimney can heat domestic hot water through a coiled copper pipe whenever you choose to add one. One machine, one fire, one log. Heat, food, hot water, a warm bed. Every essential function. All powered by a single piece of wood you picked up from your own backyard or forest. The most complete, most efficient, most resilient piece of home technology human beings have ever built. And it has sat quietly in Russian villages, ignored by the modern industrial world for 4 centuries. Not because it failed, because it succeeded too well to ever be packaged and sold to you. If you want more low-tech solutions the industry doesn't want you to know about, subscribe right now. Next video, we tear down the rocket mass heater, the modern upgrade that runs on twigs and brushwood. Share this with anyone building a house, going off-grid, or tired of paying too much for heat. The old knowledge is coming back, quietly, steadily.